Hey everyone, welcome to Mustard Hub Voices Behind the Build, where we talk with people building, backing, and running better workplaces. I'm your host, Curtis Forbes. Today's guest is Perry Lunsford, the healthy insurance dude. 7 years ago, Perry changed the way health insurance is sold in America. Today, he and his team at the Healthy Insurance Dude have a goal to fix the way health insurance is sold in the United States. He has a lot of fantastic insights, so I'm thrilled to have him here. Welcome to Voices Behind the Build, Perry.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it. I'm excited.
Yeah, you bet. So before we jump in, you are a car collector.
I am. Yeah. The problem is really my wife's fault. She doesn't tell me no very often. So
that is a problem.
Yeah, we've got like 20 something cars.
Oh man. Okay. If we had only 5 minutes together and I was driving by, which one do you want to stop and show me?
68, a mint condition 68 GT 500 Shelby Mustang. So like the real Eleanor, not all the body kit stuff, but like absolutely. I only drive it once a year. Like every nut and bolt looks like it did when it came off the showroom floor. It is absolutely stunning and perfect.
Right. I can tell you, if I was driving by and had those 5 minutes, those 5 minutes might turn into a couple of hours because I think we might have to go take that one for a spin.
we would happily do so.
So you are passionate about something a lot of people loathe, right? To talk about health and life insurance. So where did this interest come from?
It came from an accident. So I used to own. I've been a serial entrepreneur my whole life. The last business I owned, I owned 4 fitness centers. It started with one. I took one over for free that was going under, and it took me a couple of years to turn it around, and then finally got it turned around. Bought another one, built another one, and we were doing really good. It's a very difficult industry. I mean, you spend a couple $1 million to open a gym and you're begging people for $30 a month, right? So to make a long story short, we were doing well. We were enjoying it. We were growing. And then the Planet Fitness model came out and essentially moved in next door to every single gym we had. And we went from having a great time, making a really decent living, to I hadn't been paid in a year and a half, 2 years. My wife hadn't been paid in a year. We were $350,000 in debt and had, and just we were able to sell 2 of them and lost 2 of them, and it was devastating. And then I'm let's see, at that time I'm 43 years old. I was in the Air Force for 10 years, but I've never had a real job. I thought I had a beautiful resume. Nobody else agreed. I put I was like, I got to get a job. So, and the only thing I could come up with that anyone would even think of hiring me in was sales. So I put my resume out there and nobody called. And then my cousin was in life insurance up in Kansas, and I called him and he helped me find somebody and found a mentor. And then that was 7 years ago. And I walked in, and they were just, cold calling people all day. And I was like, that's crazy. Like,
that is crazy.
It's not 1975 anymore. Like, there's better ways to do this. So essentially, I've always really loved and enjoyed marketing. And, and that's how we built our gyms, was on marketing. At the end of the day, I'm a marketer pretending to be a salesperson, not a salesperson pretending to be a marketer. And so, when we were in the gym industry, we never had insurance. I'd never had insurance in my life until I came here, and I kept trying to get it. And then I would see how much it is, or I would figure out that it was junk, or somebody was trying to, give me the shenanigans. And I kind of fell in love with it because it's something that no one understands, everybody needs. And I just started marketing like crazy, and very quickly became as far as I know, the top health insurance agent in the country.
So you mentioned 7 years ago the
Right.
healthy insurance dude launched in 2018, right?
Yes, sir.
Why
June 1st, 2018.
June for okay, so we're coming up
Yeah.
on the day.
Yeah.
So
It's almost my anniversary.
why did you pick the name? Where did that come
So
from?
the truth is, I was embarrassed. I had spent, I don't know, 8, 10 years trying to convince people that when you think of Perry Lunsford, you need to think, or when you think of health and fitness, you need to think of Perry Lunsford. And then I was so humiliated with losing that. I'm like trying to crowbar in, oh, it's the same thing. It was my ego. It was like, well, and so I started with, yeah. So it was embarrassment actually is what got me this embarrassing name.
And so, you had mentioned that you started work. You learned a little bit of the business from a mentor. What kind
Kind
of
of.
inspired you to go into it by yourself, go into business for yourself?
Well, I mean, at the beginning you said that, originally I wanted to change the way health insurance was sold, and that was trying to get people to stop bothering people all the time, and let me teach a way where people will reach out to you instead of you just harassing people,
Yeah,
right? And we accomplished that, but for the most part, most of the time in the insurance business, everyone is alone. You might have somebody teach you the basics, which
yeah,
is what I had. I had somebody teach me the basics, right? This is a deductible. This is how the ACA works. This is how, and so I basically spent 2 weeks in a class learning everything there was to know at the time about health insurance, everything that they had to share. And then where the real knowledge came from was, I figured out how to have conversations with dozens and dozens of people a day. And
yeah.
so it doesn't take long when you're actually helping people coming and you speak to as many people as I did. And then you end up having a network of other people that can help clients that you can't. And so through all that, we accidentally became really high end experts at it. But so in the insurance business, for the most part, you're going at it alone,
Yeah.
which is one of the things we're trying to change now. Our goal here is to be the USAA of health insurance.
Hmm.
Because like right now, Curtis, if you need car insurance, you know exactly who to call, right?
Right.
If you need homeowners insurance, you go, I call one of these 4 or 5 people. Um, but if you need health insurance,
No idea.
you have no idea. And so, I think we've probably got probably 9 million in marketing so far over the last 7 years, at least. Um, and so our name is pretty out there,
Yeah.
but our goal is to be that, right? And so it's not just Perry. Right now we have a team of, you know, 12, 12 people. But our goal is to be the USAA of health insurance.
So, as a business owner,
Yes, sir.
now you're helping other small business owners and independent contractors. Tell me more about the kind of clients that you work with. What are things they all have in common?
But we work with a lot of people. My favorite clients are entrepreneurs, right? Small business owners, 1099 contractors. But that's just projecting on them because that's what I am. Those are the people that like me. People who most people, the only thing they know about insurance is what their HR department told them they needed to know, right?
That's
But you,
that's
you,
right.
you understand insurance better than everybody else out there because you understand HR. But anyone who doesn't have an HR department doesn't understand anything. And so our clients are pretty much anyone who feels like they're getting the shaft on their health insurance.
Do you find that that's mostly individuals, or do you find that it's small business owners with teams of people who can't afford to carry group plans?
The answer is both. So even if you have a group plan, you're probably overpaying for it. So we were on the phone right before we jumped on this podcast, and we helped a team of 40 people save, it was 60 $60,000 a year.
Whoa.
right? We moved them from one Blue Cross plan to another Blue Cross plan. We saved them $60,000 a year. So that was a team of 40 people. Now our bread and butter is the individual, right? Like that's we help that more frequently. But those small business owners, whether from one person to 50, those are the people that are really getting the shaft in America. And
That's
everyone you talk to has an agenda, which is like our team, they're salaried employees. So they don't care what you get. They just want to make sure that you get what you need
yeah.
in whatever direction that is.
The, are there any common issues or specific problems you see for the small businesses when it comes to offering insurances for their teams, or even like I'm thinking about, sort of as an aggregate, right? All these small businesses, and I know how challenging that. I had owned some small businesses, and I understand the challenges from trying to even secure it for myself, let alone for my team.
Right.
I'm just kind of curious if you see specific things that are some of the biggest problems that they have. Is it the cost? Is it the adverse selection, which probably could use an explanation here for a lot of folks? Is it the hefty minimums? I mean, what do you see?
I, I think the biggest problem is the agent that helps them. Um, yeah. I mean, human nature is that we are always protecting our ego, right? And then we all have that tribe mentality. And so what I have is right, and everyone else is wrong. So instead of taking the time and effort to understand every aspect of everything,
Hmm.
people take what they've been taught,
Yeah,
decided it's right, and refuse to learn more. Does that make sense? And
it
so
does.
essentially, you're going to end up getting the product uh, not that is necessarily right for you, and not even that's necessarily right for the agent, but you're going to get the product that the agent has bothered to learn about.
Right, right. That's
That's the
that's pretty
biggest problem.
powerful, and I feel like that by itself is like, if we take away anything from this conversation, um, I mean, ego can get in the way
It's
of
the
a lot of
worst thing in the
progress.
world.
In fact, easing into some more people topics. I mean, tell me, what are some things that you see as issues for these entrepreneurs, specifically when it comes to kind of what we at Mustard Hub commonly refer to as people problems? I'm curious through the lens of like what you do. Um, what are some things that you see these entrepreneurs dealing with, in the world of people?
Look, so we're leaving health insurance, and we're just having a conversation about being an entrepreneur and problems with people.
Yeah, and I think
Is,
to some
is that
degree, I think that there can be some connectivity, right, when it comes to some of their benefits and how they're taken care of and things like that, right? But you talk to so many different people from so many different places that do so many different types of things, right? What connects them all is that they are entrepreneurs. They're
right?
either in
Yeah,
business for
and
themselves or they're leading teams.
the only friends I have are entrepreneurs for the most part. Like even if you work with my company, we try. My goal isn't that you're going to work with me forever. My goal is that I'm going to teach you how to be an entrepreneur, and then hopefully you leave me, and then hopefully you leave me, and I get to be an investor in your company, and we get to stay together, right? But as someone that has so many conversations with entrepreneurs, and someone that has made so many mistakes. I'm a giant failure in life, Curtis. Huge. I'm wrong all the time.
That's also what usually makes the most successful people. So we'll just take that with a grain of salt.
I'm good with it. I think where most entrepreneur or where most business owners fail is in their hiring process.
Mm,
They do not match personality types with the job. They try to hire people that they like. They don't train them well enough, and then they don't empower them to take control of their job. And a lot of, in my experience, those same entrepreneurs, they got where they were because they have no problem working 14 hours a day, 6.5 days a week, right? And then when they don't see that happening from their staff that they hired, they start doing it themselves. And then instead of calling BS the second you see BS, they allow it to build.
Yeah.
And then you end up with these giant teams of inept people that were either A, should have never been hired in the first place, or B, if they were the right person for the job, were never given the training or allowed the freedom to become great at what they do.
So
If I'm looking out and I think of all the conversations I have with entrepreneurs, both my friends and my clients, and just having conversations, that's the biggest problem entrepreneurs have. And then they can't figure out why they can never step back and stop working so many hours.
yeah.
And it's because they never allowed that situation to unfold.
Do you feel I just I do want to tie this back to, circling back to insurance and whatnot, but offering, let's say we find those people that
Right.
do execute well, um, how offering kinds of benefits, traditional or not traditional, perks or whatever, how it allows them to actually keep these great fit types of folks on board. I mean, does is that something you hear a lot and see a lot?
Yeah.
Is that this plays a huge significant role?
It does. It does. So we have our marketing meeting because I own a marketing agency every Wednesday. And so if I sit back in this room and I'm the dumbest person in the room by light years, right? I mean, I have a PhD, two people with master's degrees, every people from it's one, two. My marketing team is from 6 different countries. Um, I'm the only one who only speaks English, just about, except for the British girl, and that's a different kind of English. And
Queen.
so my theory is I take a long time to hire them, and then I overpay them. I pay for all of their insurance, and I just give them and then empower them to be able to not only do their job, but like, why would I hire them if they weren't better than me in the first place? Like, why would you hire somebody who's not better than you? Unless you're taking a young person and growing them into something. But for the marketing agency, I'm good, but if I'm better than you, why would I hire you? So I need these people. Them staying is more important to me than it is to them, right? So we're going to give them whatever the heck they want, and some of them want the money up front. Some of them want a 401k, and I go, hey, listen, that's a lot of work on my side. I'm happy to do that for you, or I can just give you the extra money, and you can do that on your own. Right.
Yeah.
And here's your health insurance. And that's what we do here. So I'm going to make sure you have the very best, so that if you do get pregnant, you're only $1,200 out of pocket or something crazy like that.
Perry, you said, I really want to. I'm trying to remember what it is now because I thought it was brilliant and probably needs to be put on a meme somewhere. Keeping them is more important to me than it is to them.
Yeah.
I don't know if that was you freestyling,
That
but
was me freestyling, but
it
yes.
is so, like, to me that nails so much of today's, like, sort of workforce problems, right? Because you see turnover is at a historical high. The way people leave organizations, right? The new generation of workers wants to feel more connected or tied to things when they feel that they're not adding value, when it comes to their own personal mission, right? That that they jump ship, and small businesses, SMBs, right, they're disproportionately affected by this turnover epidemic. We'll call it that. It has been since the great resignation years ago. And what you said just, like, perfectly encapsulates, I think, what it means to be the small business owner. I've never really heard it articulated like that.
Thank
So
you.
first of all,
I've never articulated it like that.
but let me ask you this. So it, it's also easy to have blind spots with your staff as a small business owner, right? You wear many hats, and sometimes you can miss something important while you're changing all those hats out, right? Do you see any of these as you work with clients or potential clients, such as like not giving workers the things they really need to be satisfied, not taking the steps to build the culture, or incorrectly using tech or tools to make their teams' lives that makes them harder instead of easier? Do you see these things? Do you offer that kind of feedback and insight to your clients?
I mean, I would happily do so. But when I get on the phone with someone about health insurance, I work really hard to solve the problem that they want help on.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you, not very many people call me about health insurance and say, "Hey, I got this problem."
Right.
They
Right.
keep leaving, uh, and so I'm at the end of the day, I'm a salesman,
Yeah.
and one of the things I learned a long time ago is that unless I'm having a podcast, most of the time the client doesn't care about me at all, and I'm perfectly content with that. Now
That's
that said, again, the only friends I have in life are entrepreneurs, siblings, or coworkers.
right.
Those are the only people I work with. And so at those entrepreneur tables that I cherish sitting at, that those are the conversations that we have all day. So like us here, we don't have turnover, right? So we you and I spoke a while back, and essentially 6 months ago, I dismantled my company and put it back together because I didn't like the direction that it was going.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't
Mm-hmm.
have enough control over the agents. I didn't have enough control over the client experience. And listen, we have 1,100 5-star reviews on Google. I think we're pushing 1,000 5-star reviews on Facebook. The client's still getting their experience, but as you know, if I don't have total control over that, if I don't have every single phone call recorded, how am I going to make the client's life better? And then the fact is, I can't even make the my coworkers' life better because if I'm not able to listen in on every single call and go, you want your life to be better, you want to make more money, you want to be happier, you want to buy your wife that new house. Here, and here is where you messed up. Here, and here is where you did great. Let's merge those two things. But even when I dismantled and rebuilt my company, half the people in here have been with me since I started growing 5.5 years ago.
Yeah, and those are people that are that have really bought into what you stand for, your why, so to speak.
Yeah, I don't like using. I don't like. I'm not a fan of. I can't stand the word employee. Legally, it's a fine word, but I call it their coworkers. I can't stand when people say somebody works for me. Like how belittling. Hi, this is Curtis. He works for me. No, he doesn't. He works for a mortgage. He works for his wife. He works for his family. He works for his husband. He works for a car payment. He don't work for you.
Right, right,
So he
right.
works with me.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. So when you see a business that is absolutely nailing it when it
Yeah,
comes to their workforce, what do you think sets them apart from those who are fumbling, things with their employees or contractors, those that they work with? What are these leaders doing that make it all work?
yeah. That's exactly what it is. It's the person at the top is the person at the bottom, right? So
That's another
have
one,
you ever
man. We got to quote that somewhere.
have you ever been to a Walmart and you walk in, everything's clean. It doesn't happen very often. Everything's clean. Everybody's kind. Everybody's amazing, right? Any company you walk into, and you're like, what the heck is going on here? Why is this what makes this um, an outlier? And then you meet the guy at the top, and that is who he is, right? So you take that same guy that's might be at the beginning stages of his ladder and put him at a different Walmart, and you're going to get a totally different experience out of that guy. The guy at the top is the guy at the bottom. The guy at the bottom is the guy at the top. If the guy at the top is walking in every morning and starting his morning by walking through and shaking every single, if you have 500 employees, that's difficult to do. But if the guy at the top is walking in and shaking every single person in their company's hands, and that's how they start every single day, then that's how the people at the beginning of their ladder are going to start the process with the client.
You know, among these resilient, high performing businesses, right? That you've encountered, the ones that you admire, the ones that you see that kind of exhibit this. Besides that leader, which, by the way, again, gonna quote you on that last one. But what shared cultural or sort of behavioral traits do you think stands out, organization wide?
I'll try to answer that with an issue that we were working through this morning, and that is, you know, people are human, and humans are dumb, including myself, and humans make mistakes, and people they go up and then they come down, and it's emotional, it's ego, it's all kinds of things, especially in any business. And like we talked about a minute ago, like replacing there's nothing more expensive than replacing someone. So even if them staying is more important to me than it is them, if for no other reason than cost. Listen, if you hired the wrong person and you have a liar and a narcissist and a thief, okay, well, right, but those are obvious.
Yeah. Notwithstanding those things.
Notwithstanding those things, I have a person that isn't performing to the level that I'd like to see them perform at.
Yeah.
And one of my managers was like, "So do I go, beat him with a stick?" And I'm like, I know you're joking.
Yeah.
And I get that that's just a way we say things, but just so we're all on the same page, you can say, if we don't achieve this, then this is what's going to happen. But if I don't tell you what you're doing wrong to achieve this, then this is 100% going to happen. I can't go to someone and go, "You're not doing a good enough job. Do better." Wait, well, what does that mean?
Yeah. How is it defined exactly?
Like, now I can go and go, "You're not doing a good enough job. I care about you. You were doing a good enough job here. We've listened to all those calls. We've listened to all these calls. And here's the things that you were doing wrong then. And if we can make that better, and here's the things you're doing wrong now. If we can make that better, now we're way up here." But if you're not bringing the resolution to the table, well, you're just kind of a jerk, right? Like you're not.
I suppose so.
What good is you're not correcting someone if you're telling them what they're doing wrong and not giving them the correction.
Right. The tools to improve. Exactly. So,
Because most people, at least most people that I work with, they're not going to do a bad job on purpose.
right.
It doesn't mean people don't get lazy and start cutting out early and showing up a little late. And you go, "Hey, bro, let's nip this off right now. We don't play that game here. You know that." Okay, you're right, P. I appreciate it. But it's about, most of the time, you're the honey and vinegar. It's like, here's some honey, here's some vinegar, and here's how we turn the vinegar back into honey. Let's go.
Yeah. You've talked about, maybe in a little bit of a roundabout way, but talking about things like trust and alignment, that buy-in across the workforce. How do you measure things? Literally, like, how do you measure things like trust and like that buy-in, that culture, et cetera? Are you seeing your clients leveraging any helpful technology for this? I'm kind of curious, how do you benchmark things, and then how do you measure it?
So I would say we measure everything we can think of. Everything from close rating to, right now, the new company we're sitting. I did the math before I walked in here. we're sitting at 93.5% retention rate.
Wow, that
That's
is
pretty dang
remarkable.
good, right? Now, again, we've only been open, almost 6 months, but a 93.5% retention rate. And I'm even including people that we signed up and they never started or changed their mind, but a 93.5% retention rate. And then we look at close rates. We're looking at time it takes per close per person. We're looking at how long each client stays on the books, and then how long each client stays on the books for each agent, and then how long each client stays on the books after they go through our customer service program. And so I think the answer, Curtis, is, I mean, I have a guy. Basically, he came in as something else, but he's a genius, and he is basically nothing but a statistician, and that's all he does. Is anything I can come up with, he starts running numbers or building charts for,
Okay.
and then keeps track of every question I've ever asked him.
Well, hiring geniuses helps. I can definitely can definitely attest to that. I suspect, though, a lot of small businesses, they gather metrics, but maybe they track things that don't always line up with what actually drives performance and supports their business. So I'm kind of curious, like, what kind of things do you care about? What kind of data do you have, or do you see them tracking that seems or feels meaningless and doesn't always impact performance?
I would say that my initial thought on that is that I assume everything is wrong all the time, and I would take everything, anything you can look at. You can't take it and make movement on any one stat.
Right.
And
That's
so you have to take these things and fold them like a deck of cards. So, like, our cost per lead over the last 3 weeks has just plummeted. It's been fantastic. But that's not necessarily a good thing, because what's the agent experience through that process? What's the client experience through that process? Are sales going up with that, or are sales staying the same? But if they're staying the same, is that because last week was a holiday week? This
yeah.
week
Right. Right.
is the week that everybody's on vacation, so we still can't make any moves. So we
Right.
take all these things and we put them on a board, and we sit back and watch, and
Right.
we see if we can if we can do something that makes it tick in one direction or another. And then we decide whether, after several weeks, it's annoying, but it's probably good for me, because I used to have a really bad problem with moving the goalposts all the time,
Right. Okay.
especially in the gyms, because it was so frustrating, and that whole world was changing so rapidly. And so I would move the goalposts on my employees, and it was frustrating for the employees, frustrating for the clients. It's
That's a
frustrating for
good
my
lesson for
coworkers.
entrepreneurs right there. That's a great lesson for entrepreneurs, too, because the more frequently you do those kind of things, the more difficult it becomes, actually execute, what you're trying to do.
At some point, you lose buy-in from your coworkers. At some point, you're going to lose buy-in from the client.
I personally, I don't know anything about anything, but
Either,
in
brother.
terms of your cost per lead going down, you have some pretty cool new ads up there on Facebook that I've seen recently. So I'm
Thanks.
there. It's got to be something tied to that, because man, when I was scrolling past those, I felt compelled to watch them.
Thank you, Curtis. Thank you.
Yeah,
I agree. I think that has something to do with it too.
they're good.
But what the old saying, like 90% of marketing money is wasted. The problem is you don't know which is the 10%.
It's which is very real. So tell me, like, can you recall a moment, good or bad, where people dynamics, or a big hire maybe kind of tip the outcome for one of your clients' growth or turnaround, or even your own business? Any sort of inflection point? I'm kind of curious what that might have looked like.
I haven't really had I've had a lot of moments in all of my careers where I was like dancing and my eyes are full of water and I'm like, this is the turning point.
This is it.
Um, and then fast forward 5 days and it turns out that it was an outlier or an anomaly. I cannot say that there's ever been any one thing or
Yeah.
any one person. The biggest things that have changed things in my businesses and my life is just from me screwing up something really bad and going, let's not do that again.
Yeah. Well,
So I've never been, so smart that I invented the iPhone and everything changed.
um, yeah. Well, they say good decisions come from experience, and experience comes from bad decisions. Right. That's something that I like to reflect on a
I've
lot.
got that down, Curtis.
So, just a little little bit of time to kind of reflect on some more future focused thinking. Tell me about tomorrow's business leaders. What do they need to understand about people? What's the most important thing, to them, I think, or maybe what should be that many of today's leaders still overlook, that undervalue?
Well, the first thing I'll say is I think there are very, very, very few leaders. There's a lot of people who hold leader positions.
Yeah. A lot of bosses, not a lot of leaders.
I have met so few people, and I was in the Air Force for 10 years, right? I have met very, very few people that I respected as a leader. Like I just have, because if you're going to be a leader, it's like being a preacher. You don't, you don't get to be a preacher and go to the bar every night, right? You
Yeah.
don't. That doesn't mean it didn't happen. You don't get to be a preacher and cheat on your wife, right?
Right.
You don't get to be a preacher and still do all the things you shouldn't do. And where people fail as leaders is, I will say everything you've asked me, and I've given you an example of what you should do in this whole thing. There was a person that popped into my head that called themselves a leader that didn't do that, and that I learned from because I felt that they should have done that.
No.
Right? You don't get to be a leader and show up at 10 and leave at 3. That's not a leader. That's a boss.
Right.
You don't get to be a leader and not be, if you're in insurance sales, you don't get to be a leader and not be able to go, give me the phone, watch this. And then watch me customer service the heck out of this person. I'm going to make them happy. I'm going to get them the product they need, and they're going to write me a 5-star review. Sit down and watch. And so I just, I've met so few leaders that I
Yeah.
think your answer is, man, you need to be a leader. Everybody reads books. I'll talk to somebody and I'll say, you should probably, based off of this conversation, you might think about reading, this book. And they're like, oh, I love that book. It was so good. And I just look at them and go, well, you didn't implement anything that book told you. I mean, if you just read the first chapter,
Yeah.
you implemented nothing.
Yeah.
Why are you asking me these problems when you already read the book? Because all I'm going to do is quote this book to you.
Yeah.
People, and I shouldn't, but people say, "Oh, Perry, you need to write a book," and I go, "Why don't I just write a list of books you should read instead of me plagiarizing everyone else?"
Yeah.
Like
Yeah. Well,
10x is just Jim Rome plagiarization with cuss words. And
talking about these leaders then that you admire, right?
okay,
Let's focus on them.
okay.
What do you give me a myth or a misunderstanding about actual people dynamics that even experienced leaders fall for?
You know, I've been thinking this for a long time, and and I've said it for a long time, but then I saw this reel with Alex Hermosi the other day, and now I feel like I got to give him credit for it. Uh, You know how the Eskimos have 100 words for snow?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I think there should be 100 words for give a shit. And,
Okay,
you know,
we have to
and
quote that one too.
the leader gives a shit at blizzard levels, right?
Yeah.
But most people are not capable of that. And a leader gets frustrated because he wants everyone else to care at his level, but they don't. And they're just not capable of having that type of extreme ownership. It's just not who they are. Like
Right.
the good Lord program people with certain DNA, and it doesn't mean you can't overcome it, but my son was born and he came out a monster, and he's 17 years old and he's still a monster, but we've spent our whole life, molding it into pointing in the right direction. And my daughter came out Elmo, and she's, I mean, if we had her tested, she'd probably be close to Mensa level, but she's still Elmo, and she's never going to be that monster. She needs to be an attorney for her brother because he's going to need the attorney for his businesses. But and if I go to you and say, Curtis, you don't care, well, you're going to get offended because I care at blizzard level, you care at light sleet level, but you don't see the difference between light sleet and blizzard. All you hear is me saying that you don't care. And that's not true because you do.
Right.
And, I think one of the hardest things for a true leader is getting to a place where you go, okay, I understand that I'm never going to be able to get this light sleet guy to blizzard level. But if I can get him from light sleet to fluffy snow, we have a solid W here.
Yeah. That's a
And that's where I think that was one of the leadership traits that took me the longest to discover is I would just go, you don't care, go. You don't care, go. You don't care, go. And now I know I didn't do a good enough job of hiring that person.
yeah.
I didn't do a good enough job of setting expectations with that person. I probably shouldn't have brought them in at all, or I need to accept them for who they are and then use this because somewhere in them might be a blizzard of something else.
Of something else. That's actually really great advice. About about 15, 20 years ago, I remember when I was hiring for a particular position, and I was looking at certain employees to elevate to that level of responsibility. I had asked this person about a particular scenario and about how, or what could have been done to improve the outcome. It wasn't a bad outcome, but it wasn't great.
Sure.
And his response was, I don't think that there's a difference between good and great. It's either done or not done. And we don't have to wax on that. But to
Sure.
your point, the point about giving a shit, right? About being able to see the difference between good and great. And some people may not have those shades of gray, and it doesn't make them bad. It might make
No.
them not a fit for certain things, but as a leader, being able to understand that humans have those different shades, which is kind of like what you're referring to, right? As a leader, understanding, I think, that there are shades. Some people have more than others, but accepting the fact that it's a spectrum is a pretty powerful piece of advice. Okay, I do have one more question.
Yes, sir.
Uh, we're on an airplane. We're getting our bags. We're about to walk down the jetway and exit the plane. You're sitting next to a stranger the whole time, and he leaves you with one question and wanted to know, how do I get my people and culture right from day one? What's the single piece of advice you give him before he bolts down the jetway and you never see him again?
He's asking me that.
Yeah,
How do I get my culture right from day one?
from day one.
At the gyms, we had a slogan. We put it on the t-shirts. We put it on the walls. We would put our hands in and do the chant. And everything that we did revolved around these two things: love and awesomeness.
I
So
love
if
that.
you're trying to build a team, every move you make, if you think, all right, does that fit into both of these categories? Does the product fit into both of these categories? Does your attitude fit into both of these categories?
Yeah.
Does the decorations in the office fit into both of these categories? Do you exemplify love and awesomeness? Are you the person, and this is the problem, is no one can, very few people are self-aware enough to answer this. So maybe you need to ask your sister, because she'll tell you the truth. Are you love and awesomeness? Because like we started, right? The person at the top is the person at the bottom.
Yeah.
So if I have one thing, like how do you make it, how do you make the culture right? How do you get everything right? The guy at the top has to be love and awesomeness. And he has to set that example for every single member of that team at every single place on the ladder.
Yeah.
And if that happens, it's been my experience. Like, people are followers. That's what we are. Even leaders are followers, right? There's nothing a leader loves more than running into a leader that's better than him. You're like, whoa, look at this. And so if you are that, they will be that too. So it's, if I walk into a place and I see shit culture,
Yeah. Yeah. Turn it right around. That's
guess who it came from?
yeah, that's great. We gotta label this episode "Love and Awesomeness."
I would love that. That'd
Perry,
be awesome.
this has been great. I am going to steal so much of this from you and turn it into memes that I'm going to get hundreds of thousands and millions of impressions on. No, in all seriousness, I appreciate the candor. This has been great, really eye opening, and I think a lot of really great lessons in here for people. So thank you. I really really appreciate you joining me today. It was awesome chatting with you.
Thank you, Curtis. It was an honor to be part of this. Thank you for giving me this opportunity. Um,
Yeah.
Thanks for hanging out, even when we messed up, and letting us fix things for you.
Hey, totally. So I want to thank everybody for tuning in. These insights from Perry, super valuable. Encourage you to share this episode with a friend, a colleague. Of course, I also encourage you to visit mustardhub.com to see how we help businesses become destinations for workplace happiness and turn culture into a competitive edge. Until next time, looking forward to it.